Did anyone else want to be an archaeologist when they were a kid, or was it just me? And if not, can someone explain to me why growing up in those early 2000s made everyone want to be archaeologists? Well, in that frame of mind, I realized that this summer I was basically wearing the same outfit over and over again, and this consisted of light brown or tan trousers and a white loose shirt and brown belts, brown leather belts, and all that made me think of was these aesthetics of the early 2000s of archaeologists. And I decided I wanted to make more of that because it felt really comfortable and it felt really cool. And so that's how my new project got started. I decided that since I already had trousers, I wanted to make a skirt that had that archaeologist kind of vibe. Basically, I want to be Evie from The Mummy. If you know, you know. But also I don't want to quite be in that 1920s explorer, because I think that sort of aesthetic actually has a lot of connections to colonialism, and that's often something that is done, is aestheticizing history. So I just want to make something inspired or gives the vibe of that sort of. And so for this I was looking at some historical influences, some historical inspirations, without really precisely narrowing down on a decade or century. I just wanted something that felt vintage or historically adjacent. And so I looked up a couple of patterns and I found a few elements that I wanted to feature in this particular skirt. Those were a center front closure with buttons, because I find that that is very cool, just a very cool look to skirts. I definitely didn't want a fitted or a pencil skirt. I wanted something with more swoosh, because that's how I am as a person. I also wanted to try and add some more decorative elements, so I decided maybe some pleats would be nice. I'm still not sure on whether I want to add the pleats in the seams or at the waist, but we'll see. And finally, the element that I really want to add is elastic. And obviously elastic used in this way isn't historically accurate, but again, we're just being historically adjacent here. And this is because I found that the skirt I actually reach for the most in my wardrobe is a pleated, awful polyester skirt from the 80s that I got at a secondhand sale. But it has an elastic band in the back of the skirt, which makes it super comfortable and adjustable. If you have a fluctuating body, I highly recommend putting things into the things that you make that ensure that you can wear them for the longest sort of changes possible. So I am going to try and sneak a bit of elastic into the back waistband of this skirt. Now, when I was trying to sort of include all of these elements and sketch it out to see what it would look like, I'm not an artist, so there's a very basic diagram. I realized that basically I was describing a 6-panel skirt with a tall fitted waistband and some buttons down the front, which seems very achievable. And so for this, I bought 3 meters of pure cotton that I got in Paris. It was highly discounted, so it was 15 euros for all 3 meters. It's a really lightweight cotton and it's brown with a stripe, but I actually think I prefer what I think is the wrong side of it, because the other side is much lighter. But I think I'm going to go with the wrong side. And because I intend this to be an everyday skirt and I want it to be really flexible and really wearable, I have pre-washed my fabric to ensure that I can machine wash it. If you're using natural fibers and you intend to wash your made product in the machine, you should definitely pre-wash it so that it doesn't shrink when you first wash it. I think this fabric might be slightly too drapey, so I think I'm also going to interline it just with whatever I have in my stash. I have a bunch of random cottons or poly cotton blends just in my stash. I don't want to buy any more fabric. I already shouldn't be buying any more fabric, to be honest. But this one really called out to me. I was in the middle of the summer heat in Paris and I looked at it and it told me, yes, explore a skirt. So here we are. So I think I'm going to Frankenstein my usual late Victorian, early Edwardian pattern and try and make something out of it. I will add some, if I do decide to go with inseam pleats, I'll add some pleats extension to them so that it can hide in the seam. And I think that's about it, really. So I think we should get started because I want to wear this as soon as possible, and I think it'll also work really well for autumn. So my first step was actually to figure out how I wanted the skirt to be. So I did a small scale version of my typical best skirt pattern, which is a mix between an late 1890s and early 1900s draft. So slightly earlier than this skirt should be. But all I'm going to do about it is make sure that the back doesn't have as much volume as the originals, because that's more popular to the 19th century. And then what I wanted to do was to add a inverted pleat in the seam here to kind of be reminiscent of the inspiration skirt. And so I kind of knew what I needed that to look like, but I wanted to test it out first. And so I just made a little extension for the pleat that will then be sewn up together, pleated, and then continued on to the main skirt seam. And this will be at both side front and side back seams. So all I need to do right now is to transfer my best skirt pattern into a new pattern, add the pleated bit, and remove some of the volume from the back panels. And then we should have a working pattern to go. So I just wanted to show you my altered pattern. So this is my center front here. This is my pleat that is going to be in that seam. And this is my side front and side back panel. I'm just going to cut it the same, but the pleat will be on that side, obviously. And that is just because I don't think this skirt it doesn't warrant enough shaping to have a different panel for the side back. So I just thought this would be the easiest thing. I've also cut down some of the volume, but not by a lot, because I do like a looser skirt. And my last thing that I need to check is that my plan for this was to make the skirt at the waist bigger than it needs to be, so that the back can be slightly pulled in by some elastic in the waistband. This is obviously a modern addition. This is just so I can make the skirt a little bit more versatile, because my waist measurement fluctuates from noon to 3 p.m. So I just really wanted to make that change. And then I think I'm just going to cut it. I'm not going to make a mock-up of this. I think the skirt style is very forgiving. So I think quite confident in how this is going to work out. So I think I'm just going to cut it out of my fabric. I also decided to add a front closure to this skirt. That's not necessary really, it's just mostly decorative, but I thought it would look really nice with the line of buttons going down the front, whether I used them or not to actually put it on. And so when I drafted the pattern, I added a 1.5 seam allowance to the centre front so that I could fold it back and make it a reinforced button placket that's integrated into the pattern. So this I marked 1.5 inches wide. I turned half an inch under so that it was a clean edge, and now I'm just going to do 2 lines of top stitching, one right on the fold and then one about just under an inch, 7/8 away, so that I can catch this edge down. It looks a little bit crinkly, but that's because I ironed it with pins in, so once those are gone it should be alright. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And it's useful to do this before you sew all the panels, just because it's easier to maneuver under the machine. And if you're good at decision making, you can also do your buttonholes and buttons before you sew on the rest of the plackers, because that's just way easier. But unfortunately I'm very indecisive and I don't really want to commit to which buttons I'm going to use until I can see the whole of the skirt together. So I'm going to leave that to the end. But yeah, I think it's time to get some sewing done. Okay, it's time to put on a waistband on the skirt and have it finished. So this is where it stands. I have sewn all of the side seams. I have pleated all of the inseam pleats. I also finished them, I don't know if I filmed this or not actually, but I also finished them just with a little bit of tape. I don't know if you can see, a little bit of tape, and that's because the top of the pleat wasn't actually seamed, so it was just loose. And then I also secured it to the seam itself, like the box pleat, I secured it to the pleat, to the seam allowance, just with a little bit of tape. And this is something that was in the Butterick dressmaking up to date, the Victorian dressmaking techniques book, and that's a really good thing just to help support the pleat, to make sure it stands a little bit nicer. It needs a really good pressing, but yeah, this is how it stands. I've also got the pockets in, and now it just needs a waistband, and the waistband for this is going to be a 3-part waistband, and this is because there's 2 distinctive features that I want to include in this waistband, and I think this is the best way to do it. So the first one is that I want the back panel to have elastic in. No, this isn't necessarily historical. If you want to hear a bit more about my historical musings of using elastic in historically inspired pieces, I have a video for that. I'll link it down below. It's where I made an 1890s walking skirt inspired by use of elastic. But I stand by the thought that if Victorians and Edwardians had access to the things that we do today, they would do it this way. So I'm going to be putting elastic just in the back portion, and that's actually inspired by the skirt I'm wearing right now, and I'll show you. So this skirt has a really wide waistband, and it just has a section of elastic here which just gathers it slightly. It looks nice, and it's super comfortable and super practical, and really supports changing bodies. So if you're into that, I recommend adding a little bit of elastic into your waistbands. So I have purposely made the skirt bigger than it should be. It's about, I don't know, like 4 or 5 inches bigger than my most stable waist measurement. And so the back panel, this is why the waistband isn't 3, because the back panel is this section here, which when folded in half will have a section of elastic that is smaller, so that it scrunches up like this. The rest of the waistband is because it has a different section that goes from the side back seam to the center front, and another section, and this is because I've seen some sort of early 20th century skirts that had this sort of pointed waistband look, and I kind of wanted to have that as well. So my idea is for this to be the overlap of the buttons, and then this to extend slightly, and then have another button that just sort of goes onto the waistband itself. I just thought it was a cute detail. And so that's why the waistband is in 3 parts, because they're all technically different. And it's cut out of just the plain fabric of the skirt with the same interlining that I used for the skirt itself. Actually, maybe I should just seam it all. Yeah, I'll seam it all together and then fold it in half. So I'm going to seam the front bits to the sides of this, and then I'll fold it and press it in half, and then we'll see where we are, because I think this V point is going to take some fiddling to figure out. And that's it. I've made the skirt. I actually decided to, I'm wearing it right now, and I wanted to show it to you. But I realized that when I was looking back at the footage that I wore this for the intro, and so I just wanted to wear it again because I actually thought it would go really well with the skirt. So I'll show you a little bit of the close-up of the skirt, and then I also want to challenge myself to style it in a little bit of different ways, so we'll see. But yeah, so I'll show you the skirt. Now, I think it worked out really well. I really liked that I used most things from my stash, including the buttons, which is really good. It came together pretty quickly, like I'm used to making skirts now, and I really like the elastic part that I added, because I've actually tried it on over a really thick sort of winter wool jumper and it still works really well. Gives me the flexibility to not be cut in half when I'm sitting down because of a too tight and outdated waistband. And I think it's the perfect sort of mix of features and plain style to make sure that's everyday. And yeah, I'll show it to you now. And that is it. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more projects.